Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Got a call from the transmission guy, says the transmission's ready to be picked up. So we're gonna go pick it up, see if he has any advice on where we went wrong. And the goal is by the end of this video to try to have it back in the Jeep and running. All right guys, we made it to the transmission shop and this is my 2.4 band, and transmission expert says this should have lots of clutch material and it's pretty blackened, so it got burnt up. And all of these, my 3.4 clutch pack, are really warped, as you can see. Can't see it as well in video, but very warped and lots of clutch material removed. So we ran it low on fluid. That's what'll happen. Don't do that. This is new 3.4 clutch pack. As you can see, these are not warped. These ones are. So out with the old, in with the new.
Okay, the warping happened after the loss of material. Then the clutches were not being squeezed together with enough force to be able to pull the vehicle, and so they were slipping upon one another. And the reason that happened is because there was air in the fluid, and air cannot be, or air compresses and fluid does not. So if you introduce air into your hydraulic circuit, everybody knows that it becomes spongy, therefore not grabbing as hard as it should, allowing the clutch to slip, overheat, then warp, and then finally just stops moving altogether.
Awesome. Guys, we are back at the shop. We've got the transmission and it's time to put it in.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
The next day.
All right, guys. Yesterday was a generally successful day. We got the transfer case and the transmission back in, all the drive shafts in, and we were buttoning everything up, topping off the transmission and transfer case with transmission fluid. And my worst fears came to life whenever I heard dripping coming from underneath the Jeep. The reason this is such a frustrating, annoying ordeal for me is because whenever I first put this drivetrain in, I ended up pulling that transfer case probably 4 times before I finally got it to seal correctly. And what ultimately ended up working was using Permatex, the right stuff, so no paper gaskets or anything. And I just globbed that on both sides and it finally sealed. And I thought I did that again yesterday, but apparently I didn't, and we got a leak. So I had to go in, get some rest, because whenever I start getting frustrated whenever I'm supposed to be having fun, I got to call it. And so I called it. I'm back out here today, the next day, and I'm still really frustrated about it, but we're going to try to have a good time and pull that off, get it to seal up correctly so we can finally get this thing back on the road. Alright guys, we got the transfer case back up. I just used more RTV than anybody should ever have to use, but it's up there, it's sealed. I left it for a day and it's not leaking. I started the Jeep and it's not leaking with pressure through the lines, and I think we're good to go. So we're ready for a test drive. I'm on the test drive now. I was having an issue where my dipstick was reading full, but whenever I would drive, first, second, and third would all do pretty good. It was a little bit sluggish, but fourth gear would slip, so it would be driving good for 2 seconds, and then it would rev up for 2 seconds, and then good for 2 seconds, rev up for 2 seconds, and it would alternate, so it would just slip repeatedly. My dipstick was reading good as far as the level of fluid goes, but apparently I don't know anything about automatic transmissions, and I want to spread the word. Whenever you check the fluid on an automatic transmission, the engine needs to be running and you need to cycle the transmission through the gears, and whenever I did that, my dipstick went from reading good to having no fluid at all on the dipstick. So I did that a few times and added half a quart to a quart in between each time I did it, until eventually I read full, took it for another drive, and now it is running perfect, which is great because I was about ready to throw it in the trash. And the Jeep is driving better than ever. The 4L60 has never shifted so well before. If you guys watched my other video where I introduce my transmission problem, one of the concerns I bring up in the video is my dipstick and that I don't know if I'm getting an accurate reading. So I took it to David, the transmission tech, and he told me that the gauge part on the dipstick should be about where the oil pan mates to the rest of the transmission, and that's where your oil level should be whenever it's full. So you can see in this picture that it's sticking down about an inch, maybe an inch and a half too far into the pan. So what I ended up doing was cutting that cord about an inch and a half at the top and putting it up into the handle, and now I'm getting an accurate reading on my transmission fluid. Thank you God that this video is wrapping up and that this transmission is functional, and beyond that, driving better than ever. Huge shout out to David Moore at Advanced Transmission in Lone Grove, Oklahoma, who took this transmission from me and rebuilt it, even though it was my neglect that caused it to need a rebuild. I insisted he let me pay him, but he insisted it was covered under his warranty. Guys, I don't know if it's just me or if there's a genuine gap of knowledge out there. There was with me for sure, but I don't know if other people have that same gap. When you install an automatic transmission in a custom application, if you check that dipstick, when the engine's off, it's gonna read full whenever it's not even close to having enough fluid in it. So when I started the engine and I cycled it through the gears, it went from reading full to being bone dry. There wasn't any fluid in the pan getting on the dipstick at all. I added 2 quarts later, still no fluid at all on the dipstick whenever the engine was running. So I kept adding fluid until we read full, took it out for a drive, and driving better than ever, as you guys saw earlier in the video. So learn from my mistake, guys. Install your transmission one time and don't have to pull it out in less than 1,000 miles. I hope that it was at least a little bit entertaining, if not informational, and I'll catch you on the next one.